Ladies and gentlemen, inside you right now, there are two versions of yourself fighting for control. One is strong, fearless, unstoppable, the version that will take you to your dreams. The other is weak, fragile, full of excuses, the version that wants you to stay small. And every decision you make feeds one and kills the other. The truth is, your weak self has stolen too much of your life already. Today is the day you stop negotiating with it. Today is the day you kill that weak version of yourself before it kills your destiny. Every single one of us has two versions living inside. One is strong, resilient, unbreakable, the version that dreams without limits and dares without hesitation. The other is weak, insecure, fragile, the version that whispers excuses, that clings to comfort, that keeps us chained to the ground while our destiny is waiting in the sky. And today, I'm asking you to make a choice. Because you cannot rise while you keep entertaining the weak version of yourself. You have to kill it. You have to bury it. You have to strip away everything that keeps you from becoming who you were meant to be. The weak version of you is clever. It shows up dressed in the disguise of safety. It says, don't take that risk. What if you fail? It says, don't speak up. People might judge you. It says, don't dream too big. You'll only end up disappointed. It says all the things that sound logical, but in reality, they are chains, invisible chains that look like protection, but are nothing more than prisons. And if you keep listening, you'll wake up one day realizing you lived small, you loved small, you tried small, and you became small. Think about it. Every time you hesitated to take action, every time you let fear dictate your choice, every time you allowed doubt to silence your voice, that wasn't the strong you. That was the weak version. And if you're honest, that weak version has stolen more from your life than any failure ever could. Failure at least teaches. Failure builds resilience. But weakness only robs. It robs you of time, of confidence, of opportunity, of your power. That's why it cannot be managed, cannot be negotiated with, cannot be tolerated. It has to be destroyed. And destroying it is not comfortable. It requires you to look in the mirror and admit, yes, I've been small. Yes, I've played safe. Yes, I've let myself down. But then you make a vow that from this day forward, you will no longer be the victim of your weaker self. You will no longer feed it with excuses. You will no longer let it whisper lies in your head. You will starve it until it dies. You see, life will not reward the weaker version of you. The world doesn't open its doors to hesitation. The world doesn't respect people who constantly second-guess themselves. The world bends only for those who have the audacity to demand more, to walk into the room with unapologetic confidence, to take up space like they belong there. And guess what? You do belong there. But your weaker version has convinced you otherwise. That weaker self tells you, stay quiet, don't shine too bright, don't dream too loud. But that's a lie. Because if you dim your light to make others comfortable, you are betraying your purpose. And the truth is, no one ever remembers the people who played it safe. They remember the ones who risked it all, who broke the mold, who refused to settle. If you want to live a life that matters, you can't do it by nurturing your weak self. You can only do it by killing it. So how do you do that? You do it by choosing discomfort every single day. By choosing discipline over laziness. By choosing action over hesitation, by choosing courage over fear. You wake up and do the thing that scares you. You take the risk that makes your stomach twist. Till you step into the room that intimidates you. And every time you do, you stab the weak version a little deeper until one day it's gone. But here's the thing, the weak version of you never really disappears forever. It waits, it lurks, it looks for moments of exhaustion, heartbreak, failure, rejection, moments when you're vulnerable. And in those moments, it will try to crawl back. That's when you remind yourself that you've come too far to let it win. That's when you remind yourself that strength is a daily choice, not a one-time event. That's when you fight harder than ever before. Because strength is not inherited, it is built. And it is built in the battlefield of your own choices. Every rep in the gym, every early morning when you rise while others sleep, every uncomfortable conversation, every time you bet on yourself when no one else does, that is you killing the weak version. That is you proving, not to the world, but to yourself, that you will not settle for average. And yes, people will question you. They will doubt you. They will call you arrogant for believing in yourself too much. But let them talk. Their voices are the soundtrack of mediocrity. And you were never meant to live in mediocrity. You were meant to break boundaries, to exceed expectations, to redefine what's possible for you. And that only happens when you silence the voice inside that says you can't, and instead amplify the one that screams you can. Think about the future version of you, the one who has already achieved everything you dream of. That version is standing tall, confident, proud, untouchable. That version is living a life that most people only fantasize about. Now ask yourself, which version got them there? The strong one or the weak one? The answer is obvious, which means the only thing standing between you and that future is the version of yourself you keep choosing every day. Stop choosing weakness. Stop choosing fear. Stop choosing hesitation, because the longer you keep choosing them, the further you drift. Roam your destiny. Your future is not built in one grand moment. It's built in the small daily choices where you either strengthen your power or feed your weakness. Every choice is a vote, and every vote counts. So, what are you voting for? Look back at your life. Every single time you listen to the weak version, regret followed. Every time you listen to the strong one, growth followed. That pattern will never change. Regret or growth, those are your options. And the decision is always in your hands. So today I challenge you, make the weak version of yourself uncomfortable. Put it in situations it hates. Put yourself on the stage, in the gym, in the meeting room, in the arena. And when your weak voice says, you can't handle this, smile and say, watch me. That's how you kill it. Not by talking about it, not by planning it, but by acting. Action is the weapon that destroys weakness. You were not born to be fragile. You were not born to live invisible. You were not born to carry the weight of fear like a crown on your head. You were born to be powerful, to be loud, to be unstoppable. And every single time you reject the weak version of yourself, you move closer to that destiny. So stop negotiating with it. Stop making excuses for it. Stop giving it a seat at the table of your life. Weakness does not deserve your energy. Fear does not deserve your loyalty. Doubt does not deserve your voice. Kill it. Kill it with discipline. Kill it with action. Kill it with courage. And once you do, you'll discover a version of yourself you didn't even know existed. Stronger, bolder, fiercer, limitless. You will discover that when you silence the weak version of yourself, the world begins to open in ways you never imagined. Doors that seemed locked will suddenly start to move. Opportunities that looked impossible will start to find their way to you. Because the truth is, life does not give power to those who hesitate. It gives power to those who declare who they are with conviction. The weak version of you waits for permission. The strong version creates its own permission. The weak version hopes for opportunities. The strong version creates them. The weak version plays small to avoid judgment. The strong version understands that judgment is just proof that you dared to stand out. Every single time you decide to step into your strong self, you are reprogramming your mind. You are showing yourself that fear is not a wall, but a test. Fear is not there to stop you. It is there to reveal how badly you want what you say you want. If you let fear stop you, then maybe you didn't want it enough. But if you step forward despite the fear, that is the signal to your soul that you are ready for more. And once you prove you are ready, life will hand you more. The weak version wants to be comfortable, but comfort is a slow death. Comfort looks like rest, but it is actually decay. You cannot grow in comfort. Growth demands fire. Growth demands pressure. Growth demands that you put yourself in rooms where you feel unprepared, in conversations where you feel unqualified, in challenges where you feel unready. Because the truth is, you'll never be fully ready. If you wait until you're ready, you'll wait forever. The strong version of you doesn't wait. It moves first and figures it out along the way. Think of every person who has achieved greatness. Not one of them was born ready. Not one of them had all the answers. They weren't fearless. They were brave enough to act while afraid. A weak version of you will always say, someday. Someday when you're more confident. Someday when you have more money. Someday when you have more support. But someday is a myth. Someday is the graveyard of dreams. The strong version of you understands that the only time is now. Now is where you build. Now is where you fight. Now is where you win. And yes, you will fall. You will get rejected. You will be laughed at. You will feel the sting of embarrassment. But those things are not signs that you are weak. They are signs that you are in the arena. They are proof that you are alive, that you are moving, that you are chasing something real. Weakness avoids the arena to stay safe, but safety has never created legends. Safety has never built legacies. Safety has never changed the world. So ask yourself, do you want safety or do you want greatness? Greatness is expensive. It will cost you your excuses. It will cost you your comfort. It will cost you friendships that keep you small. It will cost you sleepless nights. It will cost you the version of yourself that always hesitates. But in return, greatness gives you power. It gives you pride. It gives you freedom. It gives you the life you were meant to live. And that is worth everything. When you decide to kill the weak version of yourself, you will notice resistance. People around you might get uncomfortable. They've known you as the one who played small, the one who blended in, the one who never challenged them by standing taller. And when you suddenly decide to rise, it will scare them. Not because you're doing something wrong, but because your courage exposes their lack of it. Your strength forces them to confront their weakness. And not everyone will like that. Some will criticize, some will doubt, some will even try to pull you back. But remember, their reaction is not a reflection of your path. It is a reflection of their fear. The weak version of you cares too much about what people think. The strong version understands that opinions don't pay bills. Opinions don't build dreams. Opinions don't create destiny. The only opinion that truly matters is the one you hold about yourself. If you see yourself as strong, the world will eventually catch up. But if you continue to see yourself as weak, no amount of external validation will ever fill that void. Confidence is not given, it is claimed. And the only way to claim it is to act like the strongest version of yourself, even before you fully believe it. Acting strong when you don't feel strong is not faking, it's training. Just like an athlete trains their body until it transforms, you train your mind until it transforms. Every time you take action while scared, you are doing a rep for your mind. Every time you speak up when you want to stay silent, you are building mental muscle. Every time you refuse to give in to excuses, you are strengthening your core. And just like the body, the mind responds to consistent training. Over time, what once felt impossible becomes natural. What once felt terrifying becomes easy. But this transformation requires consistency. The weak version of you loves motivation. It loves to feel good in the moment, but does nothing afterward. The strong version of you doesn't rely on fleeting motivation. It relies on discipline. Discipline is what gets you out of bed when you don't want to move. Discipline is what makes you show up when you're tired. Discipline is what keeps you moving when no one is watching. Weakness looks for inspiration. Strength creates it. Weakness waits for the perfect conditions. Strength moves in imperfect conditions. That's why discipline will always separate the strong from the weak. And understand this, you don't kill the weak version of yourself in one big battle. You kill it in daily decisions. It's in the decision to go for a run when your body says no. It's in the decision to speak your truth when silence feels safer. It's in the decision to charm. See the dream even when the outcome is uncertain. Small choices, repeated over time, create transformation. You don't need to slay the dragon all at once. You kill it one cut at a time. The weak version is sneaky. It will come dressed as logic, telling you that you're just being realistic. But reality is shaped by the bold, not the timid. Every invention, every breakthrough, every revolution was created by someone who refused to listen to the weak voice of realism. The strong version of you dares to be delusional, dares to believe in things that don't exist yet, dares to imagine a life that looks impossible today. Because what is impossible? Impossible is just a label for things that haven't been done yet. And you were not put here to recycle mediocrity. You were put here to create new realities. And let me tell you something. There will always be a fight between these two versions inside you. Every morning when you wake up, the weak version will whisper, stay in bed, and the strong version will whisper, get up. When you face rejection, the weak version will say, see, you're not good enough. The strong version will say, this is proof you're in the game. When you fail, the weak version will say, quit now, it's safer. The strong version will say, try again, you're closer than you think. This battle never ends. But the side you feed is the side that wins. Feed your strength. Feed it with courage, with discipline, with relentless action. And starve your weakness. Refuse to give it your time, your energy, your belief. The weak version of you is not your friend. It is your enemy disguised as comfort. And if you're not careful, it will steal your entire life. You have to remind yourself every single day that the weak version of you is always waiting for a moment of weakness to sneak back in. It doesn't disappear just because you had a powerful day yesterday. It doesn't vanish because you pushed yourself once. It lingers, it hides, and it waits for you to drop your guard. That's why growth requires constant vigilance. You have to protect your mind the way a warrior protects a battlefield. Because that's exactly what it is. Your thoughts are the front line of this war, and whichever version of you dominates that space will dominate your life. The weak version of you loves comfort, and the dangerous thing about comfort is that it doesn't scream. It whispers. It comes quietly, slowly convincing you to delay your dreams by one more day, to push your goals one more week, to take the easy route just this once. And before you know it, a year has gone by, then 2, then 5. And you look in the mirror wondering where the time went. That is the cost of letting the weak version win. It doesn't take your life in one blow. It steals it one compromise at a time. But here's the truth. You already know what it feels like to let weakness control you. You've lived it. You've tasted regret. You felt the frustration of knowing you could have done more, could have tried harder, could have gone further. And that pain is the proof you need that the weak version of you cannot be trusted. If you want transformation, you must make the pain of regret heavier than the pain of discipline. One will break you, the other will build you. The strong version of you doesn't need permission to rise. It doesn't wait for the perfect plan. It doesn't demand guarantees. It understands that greatness is never given. It is seized. And seizing requires you to be bold enough to step forward into the unknown. The weak version thrives in predictability. It wants CE. Certainty. It wants guarantees before action. But life doesn't work that way. You don't get the guarantee first. You get the result after the leap. That's why the weak version is always stuck at the starting line, while the strong version is already halfway through the race. And this is the painful reality. The weak version of you will always have company. There are millions of people who live in weakness, so you will never feel alone if you choose that path. You'll be surrounded by people who justify mediocrity, who make excuses sound noble, who celebrate being average. They will tell you that chasing more is unrealistic, that playing safe is wise, that taking risks is reckless. They will try to normalize weakness so you don't feel guilty about embracing it. But you weren't created to live an ordinary life. You weren't created to just exist. You were created to build, to impact, to inspire, to become a force so undeniable that your very existence changes the room you walk into. And for that, you must be willing to stand alone. The strong version of you often walks a lonely road because very few have the courage to face themselves honestly. Very few are willing to confront their own weakness, to look it in the eye and say, not today. But loneliness is a small price to pay for freedom. Because when you break through the chains of weakness, you gain something most people will never have. Power. Not power over others, power over yourself. The ability to command your mind, to master your emotions, to direct your life instead of being directed by it. The weak version always blames. It blames circumstances, it blames people, it blames timing. The strong version takes responsibility. Even when life throws pain, betrayal, or failure, the strong version says, this is mine to deal with. This is my responsibility. I will carry it and I will rise from it. Because power is Nepal. Oat in the blame, it's in ownership. The moment you own your life, no one can control you. The moment you stop pointing fingers and start pointing inward, that's when you realize you always had the strength to change. The weak version clings to the past. It replays mistakes, failures, heartbreaks until it convinces you that you're unworthy of moving forward. But the past cannot be changed. The strong version knows that yesterday doesn't define tomorrow. What defines tomorrow is the choice you make today. Every single day is a reset. A chance to declare war on your weakness and step forward as your strongest self. The past is a lesson, not a sentence. If you stay stuck in it, you are letting the weak version of yourself live rent-free in your future. The weak version also obsesses over other people's approval. It wants to be liked, it wants to be accepted, it wants to fit in. But fitting in is the fastest way to disappear. The strong version doesn't chase acceptance, it commands respect. Respect comes not from blending in, but from standing out, from doing the hard thing, from being the one who refuses to bow to pressure, to fear, to expectation. And respect is worth far more than approval. Approval is cheap. It's given to anyone who follows the crowd. Respect is rare. It's reserved for those who dare to lead. And this is where the transformation truly begins. When you stop entertaining the weak voice in your head and start aligning every action with your strongest self. Not once in a while, not when it's convenient, but every single day. Because consistency is the weapon that weakens weakness. If you show up once and quit, the weak version comes back stronger. But if you keep showing up day after day, refusing to bend, refusing to break, weakness has no choice but to retreat. Yes, this war is exhausting. Yes, it will test you. But what's the alternative? To live as a shadow of who you could have been? To leave this world with your potential buried inside you? To die with your song still unsung, your story still untold? Or your greatness still unclaimed? That is the fate of those who never kill their weakness. That is the fate of those who choose comfort over courage. And if that thought doesn't scare you more than failure, then you're not dreaming big enough. The strong version of you knows that the only real failure is not trying. Every rejection, every stumble, every setback is just a stepping stone. Weakness tells you those stones are walls. Strength knows they are staircases. Weakness sees obstacles. Strength sees training. Weakness runs from pain. Strength uses pain as fuel. And if you commit to this mindset, nothing can stop you. Not circumstances, not opinions, not even your own fear. The weak version dies slowly every time you act in defiance of it. When you show up to the gym, when your body says no. When you open your mouth to speak, when your fear says stay silent. When you take the leap, when your mind screams for safety. Those moments are victories. And stacked together, they create momentum. And momentum is the force that transforms ordinary people into unstoppable forces. So you have to ask yourself daily, which version will I feed today? Which voice will I obey? Which self will I allow to lead my life? Because one will take you to mediocrity and the other will take you to greatness. One will leave you with regret and the other will leave you with a legacy. And here's the truth most people will never admit. The weak version of you is seductive. It tells you what you want to hear. It comforts you with lies that sound like kindness. It says, you've done enough today, rest. It says, don't put yourself out there, you might embarrass yourself. It says, why risk it? Just stay where you are, you're fine. But fine is a silent killer. Fine is where dreams rot. Fine is the graveyard where the weak version buries your potential. You weren't put on this earth to be famed, and you were put here to be extraordinary. Extraordinary doesn't happen by accident. Extraordinary is engineered through choices that hurt in the moment but build you in the long run. The weak version of you will always choose what feels good now, while the strong version always chooses what feels right later. The weak version wants the taste of sugar today. The strong version wants the strength of steel tomorrow. And that's why the weak version never lasts. It gets quick relief but no long-term power. The strong version sacrifices comfort for greatness. And greatness is always the better reward. But don't be fooled. This fight isn't glamorous. It's not always loud or dramatic. Most of the time, the war between your weak and strong self happens in quiet, invisible moments. It happens when the alarm clock rings and you decide whether to rise or roll over. It happens when you sit in front of your work and decide whether to push forward or scroll your phone. It happens when you're scared to speak your truth and decide whether to stay silent or stand tall. Small moments, invisible to the world, but those small moments stack into the definition of your life. The weak version of you thrives on waiting. It tells you to wait until you feel motivated. But motivation is unreliable. Motivation is like weather. It changes every day. The strong version understands that motivation is a myth and discipline is the truth. Discipline doesn't ask if you feel like it. Discipline doesn't care if you're tired. Discipline doesn't need excitement. Discipline simply demands action. And when action becomes your default, you no longer need to negotiate with weakness. You simply do what must be done. And yes, the weak version of you will scream louder in the beginning. It will use fear to intimidate you. It will use doubt to paralyze you. It will use comfort to tempt you. But the more you practice strength, the weaker that voice becomes. It goes from a roar to a whisper, from a whisper to silence. Because strength is built like muscle. Every rep of courage makes it stronger. Every rep of weakness makes it smaller. And eventually, the balance shifts. Eventually, the strong version becomes your natural state. But you must be relentless, because weakness never fully dies. It waits, it hides, it looks for cracks in your armor. The moment you let your guard down, it tries to crawl back. That's why you have to build habits that protect your strength. Surround yourself with people who challenge you to rise, not those who comfort you into staying small. Feed your mind with words and ideas that ignite courage, not ones that justify excuses. Create an environment that fuels your strongest self so the weak one has no oxygen to breathe. Think about the future version of you 10 years from now. Imagine standing face to face with them. They are stronger, sharper, more powerful than you ever believed you could be. They've achieved the goals you dream about. They've conquered the fears that once held you back. They've lived the life you crave. Now imagine asking them, how did you become this version of me? And they would tell you, because every time weakness knocked, I refused to answer the door. Because every time fear whispered, I chose courage anyway. Because I killed the version of myself that wanted to stay small. That is the secret. That is the difference between the person you are today and the person you're destined to become. And here's something else. Killing the weak version of you doesn't just change your life, it changes lives around you. When you step into your strongest self, you become a mirror for others. You show them what's possible. You remind them that they too have a stronger version waiting to be unleashed. And without even trying, you become an example. You become a leader. You become the spark that lights the fire in someone. Else's darkness, weakness hides, strength inspires, and the world doesn't need more people hiding. It needs more people inspiring. But inspiration requires sacrifice. You cannot be inspiring if you're still entertaining your weak habits. You cannot lead if you're still chained by excuses. You cannot create impact if you're still trapped by fear. You have to pay the price. And yes, that price will hurt. But the hurt of sacrifice is nothing compared to the hurt of regret. Regret is a pain that never leaves. It gnaws at you silently, reminding you of everything you could have been. Sacrifice stings in the moment, but it heals into strength. Regret never heals. And that's why the choice is simple. Kill weakness now or let it kill you later. The weak version will always try to convince you that you're not ready. It will list every reason you're unqualified, every reason you might fail. But the strong version doesn't ask, am I ready? It asks, am I willing? Because readiness is an illusion. Willingness is a decision. You don't need to be ready to start. You need to be willing to begin. You don't need to have it all figured out. You need to take the first step. Weakness obsesses over preparation. Strength thrives on execution. And execution beats hesitation every single time. You've already proven to yourself at some point in your life that you are stronger than you think. Think of the moments when you didn't think you could handle the pain, but you did. Think of the times you thought you couldn't push further, but you found another gear. Think of the situations that you thought would break you, but they built you. That's the evidence. That's the proof that the strong version is already inside you. It's not something you need to create. It's something you need to unleash. Unleashing it requires a mindset shift. Stop asking, what if I fail? And start asking, what if I succeed? Stop asking, what if they laugh? And start asking, what if they admire? Stop asking, what if I'm not good enough? And start asking, what if I'm more than enough? Weakness lives in what if fear. Strength lives in what if possibility. And the questions you ask yourself will determine which version of you shows up. And once you commit to the stronger version, everything changes. Your posture changes. Your energy changes. The way you walk into a room changes. You stop apologizing for existing. You stop shrinking yourself to make others comfortable. You stop doubting whether you belong because you know you belong anywhere you decide to be. Weakness plays small. Strength takes space. And when you take space, you give silent permission for others to do the same. This is not about arrogance. It's about ownership. Owning your power, owning your worth, owning your life. The weak version disowns all of that and hands it over to fear, to excuses, to society, to circumstance. But you are not here to be a servant to weakness. You are here to be a warrior for strength. And warriors don't negotiate with enemies, they destroy them. Weakness is not your friend, no matter how familiar it feels. Weakness is the thief of your destiny. And every time you let it live, it takes another piece of your future. So you must decide every day which version of you deserves to live. The one that hides in the shadows or the one that commands the light. The one that apologizes for existing, or the one that demands its place? The one that settles for survival, or the one that creates significance? The one that waits for life to happen, or the one that makes life happen? That choice is yours, and only yours.